All right, appreciate it. Yeah, so I got your email, and I just did try to call Colonel Hunt.
Probably still asleep.
Okay, where is he located?
We're both in California.
Oh, okay, wow, okay. Yeah, I was a little hesitant to call because I wasn't sure if you were on the East Coast or the West Coast. But yeah, let me let you go then, and I'll just scratch this recording too. Just maybe later in the afternoon, whenever you have some free time, if you can give me a call back just so we can discuss some things. And feel
I
free
can
to,
talk to you for a few minutes now.
okay. Um, so what would be the I mean, you pretty much indicated in the email, you suggested I call Colonel Hunt because you guys are, according to your email, you guys have a militia network established throughout the USA in every state and every county. I mean, at least that's the impression I got from the email.
Not militia in every state, in every county. There's militia in several states, but what it is it's the field force system, and it's a numerical system that was developed by a well regulated American militias about 20 years ago. So it was only broken out at the county level back then. So about a year and a half ago, we broke it down to the county level because it was missing some pieces, but it's it's really the best way for people to integrate, because even if you're whatever your name of the group is or whatever you're doing, you can still integrate and keep your identity, but still plug into the field force system so we all have a, I don't know, like a one solid fluid network where everybody's working in the same direction.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And what I would add to that, I'm not sure how much of my stuff you've seen, but um, my idea about the whole thing was kind of twofold. On the one hand, as I've addressed in several videos, the general kind of public understanding or view of the militia is not very favorable, and that's by design. Obviously, the enemy has set out to put out all kinds of ideas and psychological operations to make people think the militia is some bunch of backwoods good old boys, right, with guns that are going to commit sedition, when that's not the case at all. And so what I've been endeavoring to do, what my goal is, right, is to make, so there's two sides of this. On the one hand, there actually does exist a need for some behind the scenes militia, right? It's not like you're going to throw your plans out to everybody, right? So to the extent that there may be a need for secret or behind the scenes private, organizing of militia, I would argue that that's also the aspect of militia that would be infiltrated by the enemy, by the FBI, CIA, et cetera, right? In other words, when I've done my videos, even openly and transparently on Zoom, it's funny how many messages I've gotten from people like, ha ha ha, trying to build the militia on Zoom. How ridiculous. Where to the contrary, what I'm endeavoring to do is to build a front end reality that yes, we can absolutely, because everything we're doing is lawful and peaceful and open and transparent. We want that. We want an image of the militia where it is an open, transparent, effort being put forth, because that way there's protection in that, and there's also a broader reach to people. And if you combine that with such ideas as I've put out as, hey, let's have a point man for every county and every state, right, where we have a person, preferably somebody who served in the military, preferably somebody who served as a SEAL or a Green Beret or a Ranger, who's got 5, 10, 15 years, who can say, wow, no joke, man. If our nation ever gets hijacked by communists, or Russia and China ever do try to come across our borders, sure, every American is armed, but are we organized, right? Um, the best way, in my opinion, for all of us as Americans across the board to get organized is not to have some little flimsy social group. That's not the point. The point is to make it open and transparent, where people are stepping up to the plate to say, hey, I'm it. here's my name, my phone number, my email address. I'm more than willing to say you can contact me to get some direction on what the militia is, what the legal realities are, what our rights are. Having gun safety training once a month with a professional, working in friendly cooperation with our sheriffs, having, meeting at the range once a month to do target practice and talk more about gun safety, invite the children and the family down for, gun seminars and safety seminars, have an annual barbecue. Every single person's wearing a shirt that says Second Amendment, I am a militia, because we the people are, and making it clear that everything we're doing is lawful, peaceful, open, and transparent. Now you've got a front end movement for the militia that really helps it to grow, to at least stimulate and connect people that are willing to exercise that Second Amendment right against a tyrannical government as a last resort if we have to. Meanwhile, everything we're doing is putting forth lawful efforts to, get our country back and to reestablish, our constitutional republic. So that's where I'm coming. And I do see a great opportunity here. It seems to me to essentially connect. I see even the email you sent me, very confidential, a great legal disclaimer about the privacy. I assume what you're referring to is a system that's in place on the internet to be able to activate militias essentially with commands. Is that?
Well, the disclaimer is just a general disclaimer in my email that goes out to everybody. But if you go to, I put a couple links in there, and one of them, the first one is a website we just finished, and it's called the Continental Intelligence Bureau. And the reason why is because everything's infiltrated. So over the last 8 years, the group that I've been working with is a solid core group. And the guy that's in charge of the Continental Intelligence Bureau is a former presidential candidate, and he was former law enforcement for a while too. And he is the one that does our security background checks for us to make sure that we're not being infiltrated. Because we did the process that we used, we found a cop that was in 2 different militias in Oklahoma and Texas, setting patriots up.
Right.
And then, so this is the Continental Intelligence Bureau. This one is set up for recruiting of provost marshals and scout sharpshooters and like special ops stuff. The other website is uscivilpledge.info. And that one in the mission statement breaks down the admiralty foreign occupation of the government with the case laws. Have you ever heard of the Lieber Code?
Yes. I'm not very familiar with it, but I've heard of it.
We're in an armistice right now because there's no peace treaty with the southern states. It wasn't a war, it was an invasion. So what I've been doing is studying and teaching law and how to correct your status from right now you're a civilly dead entity as property of the federal government. So you can correct your status to a man on the land, and you're not subject to their regulation anymore.
Right.
Because right now they have power of attorney over all of us. So if you revoke the power of attorney, you get to manage your own affairs again. So part of this process is there's one of them is correcting your status. The other one is there's a way to get your passport, the diplomatic immunity passport, that's supposed to come with a lifetime concealed carry permit, and you can use it to buy firearms in any gun store across the country. And
Right.
it's also your permanent ID. So my buddy in Michigan, Harold, his group is working to create the plates for the militia. So once you've corrected your status, you can apply to get your private traveler plates for your vehicle, and then you're automatically a member of the militia.
Awesome. That's a great system. Yeah, my son and I are both in that process. You're probably familiar with David Straight.
Yeah, you're not going to go anywhere with him.
Well, it's funny. I mean, David Straight says you're not going to go anywhere with Anna von Reitz. Anna von Reitz says you're not going to go anywhere with him. Now you're saying you're not going to go anywhere with David. I think it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, they work together.
Right. But here, what's fascinating to me is I was very skeptical of that whole thing. First of all, I will tell you that when I saw David Straight's video, because I've seen like 5 or 6 other people talking about the whole national sovereignty movement and the laws and everything like you're talking about. And of all of them, David Straight to me was the most genuine, the most comprehensive, and it made the most sense. And I'm sure there's others out there that are doing the same thing. But it's what's interesting and actually disheartening to me. It's frustrating is that I would think all these people are working together. Instead, it's almost like they're all just kind of trying to do their own thing so they can turn it into a money-making, opportunity, which is fine. People spend the time to learn the laws and know what to do. They should be able to, make a few bucks helping people out. That's not a problem. But what's disappointing to me is how they're almost very like at odds, like a division, like, oh no, don't go with them. Oh no, no, this one's better. Oh,
Well,
don't.
yeah, but you don't understand why. It's because Anna von Ritz is an agent of the Pope, and if you do her process, she's your new power of attorney. So all you're doing is changing the Foreign Services Corporation, known as the United States of America, for Anna von Ritz.
But that's not the case with
But
David Straight. He's not part of her at all. They're completely opposed to one another. And everything he
no,
said,
they're working together. He studies under Anna.
no, that's not the case. I'm not sure where you got that.
Well, the thing is, Harold's my buddy in Michigan, like I was saying, and he's been working back there with different people than I have, and he's the one that told me that David Straight's process is incorrect, and it's the same as Anna's, it just leaves you in the system.
Yeah, that's not true at all. My son, he's 30, and he spent the last, not only did he watch 12 hours of videos with me, which I watched the second time with him, but he got his little laptop and phone out, and everything that David was talking about, my son researched it, and for days, I mean, he was coming in, yep, that was true, Dad, yep, that was true, yep, I found that. I mean, he was going at it, and for the last 2 months, and he's been going through the process, and he found a couple different websites. He even found a website that he said, man, Dad, this one's really it. They've really got a great system down here. It was, if I remember correct, America's hyphen assemblies. And he said, man, they got it down. And then I sent that to David, and David, would you recommend this website? No. So again, there's all these different people that just kind of want to do things their way, and they're going to have opinions that the other people are doing it wrong. I think the bottom line, though, is you're right. People can go through a process that makes them sovereign. They're disengaging. They're repudiating being essentially a subservient to the crown corporation that exists. They're no longer part of that. They're becoming a sovereign. Obviously, and I say this respectfully, not in any slight way whatsoever. You have a friend, you have a buddy that you've done it through, or you're doing it through, that's, I'm sure, doing everything right. How and why he may have a negative opinion of David, I'm not sure. I'm very confident about him.
Opinion of David. He would like to talk to David to show him where he's incorrect in his process to correct that.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I mean, I speak.
Anna von Ritz, we can't work with her because she's a fraud.
Right. No, that I understand, and David's of that position too. And I don't
think David's a fraud. I think he just needs a little correction in his process. But
yeah,
really what it is we need to have a large conference call with all these people in these specific areas and hammer out one process.
Right on, brother. You just nailed it. That's exactly what we need to do. And I did ask David, are you familiar as well with are you familiar with President Geiger? No. Are you familiar with James Carpenter, Governor James Carpenter in California? No. So see, here's a whole nother, here's a whole nother thing.
Restoring the Republic, right?
Right. And that's the thing. There's a whole nother process that's taken place, apparently, that started back in 2010, where a group of patriots supposedly, right, put together a 140-page declaration of sovereign intent that was submitted to the Hague and accepted by the Hague. And their claim is that they are the front-end lawful reestablishment of the constitutional republic based on the first constitution. And I've had Governor James on some meetings with us. He's told me that President Geiger is the current lawful president of the constitutional republic of the United States of America, and according to the Hague and 140 countries that acknowledged that and signed on to that. And their 140-page document is on the top of our website, which I'm in the process of reviewing. You can review that. And when I spoke to David Straight, I've spoken to him several times on the phone. And last week he texted me back, and then he called me, and I said, so David, we need to do a meeting, like you just said, with several of these people, so we can kind of get everybody on the same plane here. I said, it's critical. And he says, I agree, we need to do that. So absolutely, if we can get a Zoom call with you and your buddy, who you understand would suggest some things to David where he's off. I with all due respect, I'm quite certain that's not going to be the case. It might be the opposite way, or they might both be right and they just misunderstood one another as being off track, and they're both on track. But I can assure you, David is on track.
One way to skin a cat.
That's true. Exactly. That's right.
Harold's process is completely in the private. He doesn't like to use anything on the public side, and David's probably using stuff on the public side.
Yeah, well, ultimately, it would be good to have that conversation. We do need to have an open, transparent conversation for the benefit of the people, because there is a lot of confusion. We need to throw a lot of these things out and shake a lot of these issues out. That's one of the things I've done, over the last several months as well, with all these psyops, the anti-Semite Jew hater psyop, the black racist thing. There's just a bunch of crap that's been thrown out to confuse people, humiliate them, intimidate them, shame them, make them afraid to speak out against corruption, against evil, against the ills, against the godlessness. It's all a communist agenda, as I'm sure you know. It's a one world order.
Yeah, but it's not communist. It's the Ashkenazi Jews.
There you go. And that's what I mean by communist. The Jews are the communists. Most people think of communism, they think of, Russia or China. No, that's BS. The real communists are those that want a one world order, right? New world order, one world government. That's communism in the ultimate sense. And you're right, the Ashkenazi Jews, the Khazarians, the Zionist Jews, they're communists, right? Karl Marx and his predecessors and proteges, all Jews, right? The Jewish Bolshevik Revolution, which few people understand, was the basis, right, for World War I, when they killed the Christians are. So I know that we're on the same page, no doubt. And I'm sure that, what's your buddy's name? You just mentioned Harold Petrie, right? Hopefully, it's just a misunderstanding on his part. It would be nice to get Harold and David and this other group, right? James Carpenter and Governor James Carpenter, President Geiger. Again, these are people that say they have the actual legal document that says they have the government. They've reestablished it. I'd encourage you to watch that if you haven't seen it. It's on the homepage. I put it on the homepage of our website. You can see a little 20-minute speech of President Geiger and listen to his claim. Click on the link, go to their website. I put a link to their website because they're claiming they're it. They reestablished the constitutional republic, that it's literally a parallel government. Their words were that in 2010, the UN was going to invade and take over because our government had failed and the corporation went bankrupt.
Well, we're almost at that point now.
Right. And as you know, brother, psyops galore, man, right? There's just all kinds of psychological operations. I'm not sure where you're at with Q and Trump. I was Trump's greatest supporter, but I'm absolutely today of the position that Trump is nothing more than another, Trump and Biden are two wings of the same bird. They're playing good cop, bad cop for the New World Order, one world government regime.
Yep. Now you're repeating me saying good cop, bad cop with Trump and Biden.
Yeah, that's
we were in contact with him, and he refused to renew the Foreign Agents Registration Act, and he also refused to nullify Obama's executive order allowing the use of propaganda against people.
Amazing.
And then the third one was the vaccines. He was behind Operation Warp Speed.
Exactly. The bioweapons, to be more accurate.
But the fourth one he did that nobody really pays attention to is that he took his job creation program. He took the automatic sorting machines out of the post office and clusterfucked it, and that's why the crime is back in the post office, because everybody's stealing the mail again.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I've had about 3 accounts of mail not getting to me that people said they sent me in the last year. My neighbor said it's happened to him twice. So I don't know what that's about, but that's an interesting point to me that you just made.
Well, it's because they took out the automatic sorting machines to create more jobs. So now all the mail was sorted by hand again. And people would look it up and say, hey, there's grandma's Christmas card, $20. They'd steal it.
Wow, no kidding. Wow. Yeah, that's
and under Biden, you can see that they're not speeding anything back up. They're slowing it even more. Right?
Yeah.
So right now, China has over 10,000 ships at anchor because they can't go anywhere.
Right.
For the transport.
Exactly. Yep.
So I'll give you Harold's cell phone number if you want to get on the phone with him or talk to him, get him in touch with David.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me grab a pen real quick. Hold on just a second. All right, hold on. Let me just pause the recording here for a second. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's an interesting point you just made about liberals showing up in Grass Valley, you said, which sounds like a nice place. It's my son. my son's a hotshot firefighter. He was out in Northern California last year. Remember, there was a lot of bad fires last year, and
Yeah, I know about the hot shots.
yeah, and he was out there, and it's amazing because we all do think of liberal California, but he said, man, up in the all the rural areas, they're all red, man. They're all Trump supporters. They're all patriots. They're all conservatives. It's just that when you go into the cities, which again, that goes back to that communist thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're using our money against us.
exactly. We could talk all day on that one, brother. Hey, I'd love for you to join us on a Zoom meeting. We do our National Militia Zoom meetings every Sunday and every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, which would be 3 p.m. your time on Sundays and Wednesdays. I'll text you out, and I'll get your email. I'll have you text me your email. Oh, I already have it because you sent me an email. And, I'll just send you out the invites, and hopefully you can join us sometime and throw some great info on the meeting.
Didn't know that the Republic was still really doing anything, because I know a lady. Do you know Shalene Nightingale? You ever heard that name?
No.
She was the governor for the Republic.
And what state?
2014, California.
In California? Okay.
Yeah. So I did a series of radio shows on her radio program to teach people that the government's a corporation, and we had six presidential candidates on the show. And I showed them all why none of them were qualified, because none of them knew how to create or dissolve a corporation.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Well, it's amazing. I mean, on the one hand, knowing that there's 300 million Americans, I mean, it's kind of understandable that there could be all these different movements, going on that other people don't even know about. But we definitely got to bring them all together. That it's parallel just even to the militia. That was my idea. Somebody early on said, Mike, man, how are you going to organize all the different militias? And I said, there's not all the different militias. There's only one militia. We, the people, are the militia. Sure, there might be different militias in different areas, but we all need to come together with this recognition that we, the people, are the militia, and we need to organize per our county. The Miami-Dade County Militia, the Palm Beach County, militia. What's the name of your county? Hello? Did I lose you?
Phone cut out for a second.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying it's amazing, on the one hand, knowing that there's 300 million people, it's understandable that there'd be a bunch of different groups out there all doing the same thing and not even know about each other. But that's, part of the problem is we need to all get together, get on the same page. And it's parallel to the militia, same thing, right? Early on, somebody was telling me, Mike, how are you going to organize all the different militias? And I said, it's not about organizing different militias. There's only one militia. We, the people, are the militia. So while there may be,
we got to start with security.
Yes, absolutely. Which again, that's heavy because, even as you're speaking, man, I've got good discernment from the Creator. God Almighty has blessed me with that. And no matter how good your discernment is, there's always going to be the psyop. There's always going to be that intelligence group that's trying to outwit you, outsmart you, outplay you, and come across as something good. So as all the great things you've said, all this great conversation we've had together, in theory, I could be, an intelligence FBI, infiltrator. You could be, right? It's tough. And that's why, to me, the openness and the transparency by way of lawful and peaceful and organized and growing is at least the first step. The security, yes, it goes hand in hand with that. But again, anything that is endeavoring to be behind the scenes, or, hey, come over to this platform, man, because it's private and, you can say whatever you want. I've been saying
nothing's private.
Right. Nothing's private. And so there's no doubt. I believe there are hundreds, if not thousands, of hardcore patriots that have been rounded up over the last year since January 6th that have joined the victims of January 6th who are sitting in dungeons, the ones that were set up.
It's a lot deeper than that. Do you know who Stuart Rhodes is?
No.
The founder of the Oath Keepers.
Stuart Rhodes, founder of the Oath Keepers. Okay.
His co-founder is Charles Dyer. Charles Dyer is a twice honorably discharged Marine who was set up with the help of Stuart Rhodes by the FBI, and he's now doing a 30-year sentence for child molestation, which he didn't do.
Right. Right. They'll make stuff up. Yeah.
Stuart Rhodes was Skull and Bone Society at Yale, along with Clinton, Obama, and Bush. His grandfather was the Rhodes Scholar that overthrew Rhodesia for the Queen.
Wow.
So that family is extremely dirty. And
Right.
right now he's being hailed as like the leader of the Patriot movement, and that's completely backwards because all the Oath Keepers do is gather information on anybody that wants to join.
Right, exactly, exactly. Which again goes back to why I'm saying just grassroots, good old regular people connecting and organizing. That's to me the ultimate way to go about trying to organize as again saying, yeah, man, let's all connect. All of us who are of like mind on moral virtue, traditional family values, we're opposed to that liberal, leftist, progressive, transsexual, transgender, transhumanism agenda. We're about the Second Amendment. We're about the First Amendment. We're about responsible freedom. You know, traditional conservatives, right? Conservative, you know, all those labels, they're all labels, but center to right, conservative, Christian, patriot, truther, right? We must begin to come together. I mean, just all that's all, and do it like you're saying by finding our sovereignty as well, going through the system and breaking free from that corporate system.
Yeah. Well, for me, I've been doing this since 2011, and I've been into court probably 30 or 40 times now on stuff. And after a while, you lose your fear of the system,
Right.
and that's all it is. So now I know how to fight the system, and I don't believe the feds would come after me anymore because they can't charge me with anything because I know enough law to defend myself.
Exactly. That's what it's about. If only we grew up in grade school, middle school, and high school being taught those
Yeah,
things, right?
the perfect time. We were told that the two things to avoid was religion and politics.
Exactly. Yeah. Amazing.
I don't know how old you are. I just turned 54,
Yeah. I just turned 57. When was your birthday?
August 24th.
I mean, I just turned 56. What am I saying? August 24th. Yeah, I was August
Yeah,
17th. Happy birthday, man.
yeah. Happy birthday,
So you're Leo, right? Still
Virgo.
Virgo. Okay, you changed over,
Yeah.
but that's
Well,
cool.
I have a lot different background than a lot of people because I went in the Marine Corps when I turned 18, and then got out, went into security because I wanted to become a cop. But I got I don't know, disenfranchised with law enforcement because that's about the time that they started their shift and dropping the thug boots down.
Right.
So I stayed in security and then got into construction. So I became a general contractor and then a home inspector. But my training has, taught me observe and report and troubleshoot and reverse engineer things. And that's what I've done with the system to get to the process that we've created with everything.
Right.
So we have a training manual, the combat lifesaver course for the Corpsman Corps or medics, and then the main one is the Continental Militia Standards, and that's where anybody can create fire teams, platoons, squads, all that stuff.
Awesome. Yeah.
And the thing about the field force system, the way it was set up, is that, like I was saying, anybody can plug into it. So if you're a random unit or even a ham group, you can still plug into the field force system in your county. So as other assets come in, you guys can all merge together a lot easier.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely going to link those in my website. Um, as a something for people to look into and better understand. Just as I have on the homepage, like I was telling you, with Republic for the United States of America.org, right, where they've claimed to have taken back the original constitutional government, which they're basically, in a nutshell, have stated that they need 30,000 people in every state, and when there are 30,000 people in every state who have signed on to it, they can now legally, lawfully vote for all the government officials, president, senators, Congress, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, check that out when you get a chance too, because it's just like David Straight was mind blowing to me when I first saw his videos. Which by the way, on that, I'm not sure how familiar you are with him. You've heard other people's thoughts about him, but
I was studying David Straight about 6 years ago.
Okay, yeah, and I'll tell you, he by his own admission, he's human, and we're always learning, right? I mean, I know things now that I didn't know 6 years ago, and it's the same with him. And I think, so for all I know, I mean, and I don't know, but it may well be that 6 years ago or 10 or who knows when, that he was working alongside of Anna, and then realized that she was doing things
no,
wrong.
Harold told me about this maybe 2 months ago.
Okay, yeah, well, it's definitely
David,
not the case right
I can't
now.
say anything bad about David. I don't believe him to be a bad guy or dishonest or misleading.
Right.
Because I was learning from him, but my studies took me a different route because I got into criminal law and then common law.
Right. Yeah. Please send me any links. Is there a website you can say right now that would be a website that's relative to Harold Petrie and his approach to getting back your
Yeah, but
sovereignty?
it's not going to have much info on it for about a week. It's called commonlawman.info.
All right, commonlawman.info. All right,
Yeah, I just started building it yesterday.
All right.
I got to get the information formatted, and about a week it'll be ready to share publicly.
Right. All right. Well, that'll be.
It's got his process is completely in the private. He doesn't go to the system and ask them for anything. He sends orders in and orders them to do his bidding and changes his status in the system. But there's other ways too, where you can do a probate filing, and then they correct the system for you. And I kind of like that one. And then there's the SS5 Social Security form that you're supposed to use to terminate the Social Security trust, which is the power of attorney over your estate.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways to do it. And Rod Class, do you know Rod Class or know that name?
No.
Rod Class is the most famous of all the private attorney generals, because I'm a private attorney general too. But he's got congressional recognition. Harold doesn't like him because he operates in the public, and I have studied Rod Class and Harold, so I told him that if Harold and Rod Class had a love child, it'd be me, because and if both parents fed it the knowledge they have in law, because I can operate in the public or private and use whichever. And the reason why is because when I was getting dragged into court, I thought that I need to be able to defend myself in any situation, any place, any time.
Right.
And Harold just fights from a different perspective as well.
Right. Yeah, that's like you said, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and we all definitely have different perspectives. It's a big part of it. So, which is why we all do kind of maybe even favor, one teacher over another, or one approach,
But some of the people, if I don't want to work with somebody, it's not because that I don't like their ideas. It's because they're a fraud.
Right. Yeah.
And we have to be operating in good faith, clean hands, with honest goods and services.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm absolutely confident that David Straight is not a fraud. And given everything you've expressed about yourself and your experiences and knowledge and skills and what you've learned and studied, if you
I don't
ever
think David's a fraud, just Anna.
say again.
I don't think David's a fraud, just Anna.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, is there any?
You have,
What's a piece of meat you can throw down on the table that would really validate that statement?
have you ever heard of Larry Klayman?
Larry Klayman, no.
He's a famous attorney. His videographer, his name is Stephen Gronka. Stephen used to come on some of my conference calls, and he had me host one for him one time on behalf of Larry Klayman's groups. And this was probably 8 years ago. Anna was on the call, and she was basically a nobody back then. And she admitted on the call under questioning that she was in service to the Pope and was his agent.
Do you have that video? Do you have that recording?
No, it wasn't a recorded call.
See, that's why I told you early on, I like recording everything. You never know what's going to come out, man.
Well, the problem is that, people back then that organizing the conference calls, it was a random thing and it was beyond my control.
But you're stating that you, with your own ears and your own mind, you heard her say that she's representing the Pope.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it on documents too.
Yeah. Do you have any of those documents?
Nope.
See, if you see a document like that, you got to take it, right?
Well, yeah, but that's why I'm putting these websites up now, because I've been hacked and my computer's trashed so many times. The last time I got hacked, I lost 3,300 files, and I've been studying criminal law for 6 years. That was a lot of work to lose.
Right. Well, for a guy who studied security, man, come on. Where's your security, man? Get those files secure, brother.
I live in Grass Valley in the woods. When this all started 16 years ago, I didn't even have kids. I was living on the river in a tent, mining gold. I didn't care about society.
Right.
And then I had a kid on the way and had to move back into town, and they outlawed dredging and gold mining. And now here I am fighting the system.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's not because I had a lot of resources to do it. I'm smart,
right,
but I'm a Marine with a head injury and a trashed body and stuff like that. And
right,
so I have a lot of knowledge, but all my resources go into what I do, and I make about $40 an hour, work part time,
right.
and I've got about 5 websites up now, and this network's been moving forward steadily for 8 years now.
And when did you serve, brother?
I was in 1987.
87? Yeah. Where?
Camp Pendleton.
Camp Pendleton? Yeah. How long were you in for?
10 and a half months.
10 and a half months. Wow. What happened? You got an injury when you were in?
I hurt my back and I blew out my knee.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, I've heard many of those stories. That's just the fact of life, man. A lot of people, once
Well,
you go
30
that,
mile.
go ahead. Yeah, I was saying once you go that route, man, a lot of times, people want to get into sports or they want to join the Marines and then they put their body to the test. And if you got a weak link in your body, man, that's it.
Oh yeah. But I think that really it was more about the knowledge as part of my life skills. Looking back on it.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, just boot camp alone. So if you did almost a year, you'll pick up a tremendous amount in any branch of the military within a year.
Well, I went through boot camp and then infantry training school twice. That was about the end of it.
Right.
But looking back, look where we are now with the field force system and the training manuals and everything.
Right.
That was a critical key because a lot of people have been coming to me for direction to create this stuff, and I wouldn't have had anything to give them if I hadn't gone through that.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So
you have Harold still. Maybe you can get him on the phone with David Strait, and they can hammer this out really quick.
yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I got to do that.
He wants to talk to David.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to definitely be endeavoring to do that here as soon as I can.
I'm going to watch this video on the president just because I'm curious about it, because he's basically the current Tim Turner, right?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know who Tim Turner is.
Tim Turner was the first president of the Republic. He died in prison.
All right. Well, maybe maybe he's the replacement.
So the reason that I never, with the group that I was with was the Fourth Continental Congress, because I believe that's the only way to fix the system is to be in a Continental Congress like the founding fathers did.
Right.
With the militia, because the original form of government was militia. Did you know that?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can tell that if you read the original Virginia Constitution.
When you say the original Virginia Constitution, do you know how many there were? Because they're always, because that's a pet peeve of mine too, is knowing that we know who the enemy is, and we know that they use their money to bribe and buy off and pay for our corrupt career politicians to get their bidding done. So for decades, they've simply used, because they work in a drip by drip process. So yeah, they try to tweak a word, take a word out here, take a word out there, and over time change things up. Now, to what extent that requires a constitution to be considered a second constitution or a third constitution, I don't really know. It's my understanding that the United States of America, there are 3 constitutions, right?
Yeah, but those are the federal constitutions, and we're talking about state.
Right. But I'm just making the point of how there's more than one, and what the process is of making it, be. I mean, what do they make one change? It becomes the next constitution. You know what I mean? I don't know what's the standard, for saying okay.
Well, they just add amendments to it, but so the original Maryland. So what I did is I went back and looked at the original 13 colony constitutions, because out of those came the compact known as the Federal Constitution, and it was really interesting stuff. So the original Maryland Constitution, the preamble, first thing it says is the right of the people to overthrow the government. Right. That was amended out that you have to do peaceful assembly and all that crap.
Right.
I had a website up yesterday that I was looking to incorporate into the mission statement for the new common law man.info site, and it showed how many times each state constitution's been ratified, but I don't have that site in front of me.
Yeah, see, again, that's the thing. Just over the last 150 years, since the 1870s, it's just been a gradual shifting and changing of what the original intent was for this nation. And of course, their big communist agendas of demoralizing, right? Using the media to persuade people with concepts and ideas, their psychological operations to sway the way people think about any given thing, the mass deliberate intentional immigration, right? Flood immigrants into the homeland.
Yeah, forced recolonization.
Right, right. And amalgamation, amalgamation of the races. Are you familiar with the Colburn, the Jesus in Britain? You got to watch. I wasn't either until just it's fascinating actually, because somebody sent me this video. A fellow in Canada sent me the video, Jesus in Britain, passages from the Colburn. And so the Colburn is like, how we know about the Bible and we say, they've kept books out of the Bible, and, who decided to put the Bible together? Obviously the Catholic Church, right? But they'll keep out, the Maccabees, and they'll keep out, I can't remember.
I don't think it was the Catholic Church. I think it was the Vatican already when they wrote the Bible.
Yeah, the Vatican. I mean, most people correlate, the Catholic Church as being, the Roman Catholic Vatican Papal Institution is kind of the head of the Catholic Church. But there are Catholic.
Well, do you know where the actual heart of Catholicism was?
The actual what?
The actual heart of Catholicism.
Well, I've heard different, opinions.
Dresden, Germany. What do we know about Dresden, Germany? The Allies firebombed the crap out of it and leveled the city.
Right, but what are you saying, that was the heart of Catholicism?
Lutheranism is the actual Catholicism. Everything done with the Vatican was done to usurp it.
Well, only to the extent that Lutheranism was kind of the breaking away from that Roman Catholic Vatican Papal Institution, and thus creating, what we know as Christianity.
So there's two places on earth that I studied the history of it just to see the what's and the whys, and that was Dresden, Germany, and Hiroshima. Because Hiroshima had no military value. It was the cultural heart of Japan, and it had history going back over 1,500 years.
Right.
And they nuked it.
Yeah. Just like same with Iraq, right? Go destroy the history, destroy the culture.
Well, things are getting kind of interesting, because the things that like flat Earth and all this other stuff, I don't follow all those tangents because it's a waste of time. It doesn't matter if the Earth's flat or not right now until we fix the government.
That's ultimately true. I mean, for some people it makes a difference, right? Because obviously the spinning globe traveling through a vast void of outer space is all predicated upon some happenstance, godless Big Bang, right? That can exclude a God, and that man evolved from monkeys. So of course I totally reject that. It's all theoretical, and they promote it as fact. It's pseudoscience, and they promote it as science. So the flat Earth, obviously, which the preponderance of evidence supports, in my estimation, based on everything I've seen, that we live under a huge created environment, which itself, could go to another level too, because, to what degree might that environment be a, simulation of sorts?
Yeah, this is supposed to be the simulation of when you die, you wake up from the dream.
That kind of thing, right? I mean, just, this is kind of just being a little slapstick about it, but when you think of video games, right? I mean, think back to when we were kids, and all there was Pong and and Pac-Man. But now look at what video games are today, right? Where you could put goggles on your head, and you think you're looking around in a jungle, and they can hook you up with wires, and you can move and make it look like you're doing things. So imagine, if gaming evolved to that extent just within 40 years, where would gaming be in 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 years, right? So theoretically, yeah, I mean, we could be in a game, like you said, when you die, you actually wake up on the other side and pull off the wires, and the mask go, wow, that was a trip. I was this person with this family doing this, that, or the other, I mean, we just don't know. It's that's really,
it sounds like you believe in the flat Earth, do you?
I don't believe in anything. I think about everything. And I've looked at both sides of every argument. What I can say is this: I know for a fact that I have never, ever been presented with proof that we live on a spinning globe Earth traveling through outer space. Anything anybody's ever claimed to be proof is not, because there's an alternate to it that makes as much sense, if not more. And again, like people, when they present a photograph of Earth from space, and then you discover that no, that's a composite, right? That NASA admits they had to piece together in layers because of high altitude imagery that was taken, and then they craft it into, you know, a globe, right? So what I do know is there's no proof that we live on a spinning globe Earth. It actually, frankly, doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of the new things that have come about, the big ones for me are the stars, right, being in the same position to the T every year. They move out of position for the seasons and go right back in to the same position. But yet their concept of us traveling, you know, this little planet's moving through space, you know, covering more than 1 billion miles in space in 1 year. And yet after 10, 20, 30 years, we've traveled billions of miles through space, but yet the stars are all in the exact same position. The point would be that that's more consistent with the biblical account of, you know, the creator putting the lights in the heavens that are, you know, circling and moving around above us. That makes more sense because they're in the same place. The thing about water being flat and level, right? It always seeks its own level. And the fact that, you know, when we were kids, they said a ship that was 3 miles away, you couldn't see it anymore because it was going over the horizon. Yet now with high technology, people are zooming into ships, you know, 100 miles away. Wait a minute, something's wrong here. You know, the Navy railgun, right, that shoots, you know, a target straight and level 200 miles away. You can't have 200 miles of straight and level on a 25,000 miles in circumference globe based upon spherical trigonometry. It's mathematically flawed, right? So all these kinds of things certainly suggest to me the preponderance of evidence is, and again, right, Captain Cook, you know, his log saying he sailed around the outer ice ring wall for 3 years and never made it back to where he started. You know, which, you know, that's a lot bigger than a 25,000 miles in circumference globe, which wouldn't even be 25,000 because the 25,000 would be at the equator. If you're down, you know, near the bottom of the ball, it's not going to be, you know, a 3-year trip, right? You know, to not even make it back to where you started. So yeah, there's a lot of issues that I've looked at it all, and I don't. Go ahead.
Do you know about the clock in Prague?
The clock in Prague. No, tell me about the clock in Prague.
There's a clock. If you look it up, it's a really awesome looking clock. It's got all these features and doodads and gizmos that nobody can figure out. And what they figured out is that a couple hundred years ago, they modified the clock that it was a flat Earth clock, and they removed things and altered them to hide that fact.
No kidding.
Because I've been studying this clock, wondering how does it work, and the video that I saw on it that showed it in its proper operation actually made sense, because I'm not a flat Earth proponent. I mean, I can't rule it out, because if life is possible, nothing's impossible.
Right.
But, you know, I just don't have time to put into that to figure it out.
Right, right. Yeah, and ultimately the point you make is valid. It can be beneficial. I mean, you know, supposedly there are people that said they didn't believe in God, but now this proves the existence of God. Now I believe in God. Great, you know, that it can be a benefit. But for somebody that believes, you know, I would believe in the creator either way, right? Because the creator, you know, if the creator could do anything, the creator can make a vastness of space and create, you know, planets and stars. Although it would be kind of fruitless. It doesn't make sense. It's not as sensible as, you know, it would be like saying, okay, I got a pet turtle and some goldfish, so I'm going to get an aquarium, and kind of, you know, feed them and give them some space and let them do their thing. That makes more sense than, okay, I got a pet fish and I'm going to go throw them out in the ocean, you know, or I got a turtle, I'm just going to go drop them in the middle of the Everglades. There's my pet, you know. Anyway, yeah, we can, you know, obviously the philosophical and spiritual thoughts and ideas. To me, the bottom line is ultimately a person either accepts, acknowledges, believes in, and gives thanks to the God of life, the creator of all that exists, or they don't. They reject that. And the ones that reject that are the ones that are more prone to an anything goes, leftist, liberal, progressive, transsexual, transgenderism, transhumanism way of life, which
I haven't found any reference to a God in any culture going back more than 6,500 years.
Right. And
so how come Atlantis didn't have gods they worshipped?
right. I think that, you know, on the one hand, we can say nature is God, God is nature. There's no way that the concept, see, there's the concept of God in a religious way, right? I mean, people have this idea of some bearded guy sitting on a throne. I don't view God in that way. To me, God is, I don't even like the word God. I just say the creator, you know, the creative source, force. Could that create?
Yeah, source. That's probably a better description.
Right.
The universal consciousness.
Right. You know, because it, you know, mankind, you know, just kind of, because they can't fully grasp this creative force, they will encapsulate him in their own way of thinking, you know, like they have to put him in a bottle, you know, like, oh, here he is, you know, this picture of this man sitting on a chair, there's God, right? Because it's impossible to fully understand that all-knowing, all-powerful, ever-present omnipotence of the creator. You know, it's not possible. So, I mean, the bottom line is, are we here by creative design? Was it intentional? Was it willful? Was it put forth? I mean, you know, that could mean you are God. And
yes.
What's that?
I would have to say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I believe. So, you know, that becomes, you know, again, the point is, does a person acknowledge that there's structure and there's order to creative to creation, and that it was created and it was by design, and therefore there are, ultimately it's the moral issue. The moral factor is what it all comes down to. In fact, the only true division in humanity is a moral division, ultimately, because, you know, difference of race isn't a division, different of cultures isn't a division. Those are good things. That's what I always say about, you know, race. You know, I mean, I've cut the legs out of racism years ago when I said, well, gee, let me see here. I acknowledge that there are different races of human beings. I believe the creator God Almighty created all of the unique, beautiful, different races. And I appreciate the uniqueness and the beauty and the value and the difference of all the different races. And therefore, I believe they should all be protected and preserved and honored and respected. So call me a racist. That's a racist in a pure and true sense. This media-driven brand of racism, you know, this hateful concept is all, that's divisive. That's the division. They use, you know, divide and conquer, right? The old.
Well, right now the interracial thing is being used to push an agenda, and we're in a West-based society now, and I don't approve of that, because there's tons of unwanted children out there because of it.
That's right.
But if it was based on love, then, you know, that's fine.
Yeah, and even there, you know, the argument could be made that if there's a creator, because I do believe that the Genesis account of the trees in the garden is cryptic. It's not literal. Obviously, a religious mind is going to take it literal, like Eve picked a fruit off a tree and ate it when she wasn't supposed to. But, you know, in Bible prophecy, a tree represents a person, you know, the symbology, a tree is a person. And knowledge there's a sexual connotation to, you know, Adam knew his wife and she conceived. There's several references to knowing having a sexual connotation in the Bible. Fruit, be fruitful and multiply. Fruit has a connotation. So the tree of the knowledge of the fruit of good and evil, you can you can partake of all the trees in the garden, but not this one. It's as if to say, you know, hey, of all these trees in the garden, which is Eden, which is God's creation, you could partake because these are all of your kind. But of this race, don't partake. I created this to be this. I created that to be that. So if the law of God's intent and design was purposeful in there being different races, and God said, you know, don't interracially, you know, mix, that's because, you know, we can love somebody. It doesn't mean we have to interracially mix. So that's a touchy issue in itself, because I agree with what you're saying and understand, you know, we can say, oh, two people love each other and you can't take that away from them. But at the same time, you know, there's two arguments I made on that once. You know, like if I saw a black guy and a white girl, I could genuinely ask them, let's say they're married, they're together. Hey, my brother, my black, you know, Negro black brother, man, I'm just curious. This is a genuine question for you. Are you genuinely, do you like being black? Are you proud of being, in other words, are you a proud black man? Are you ashamed of being a black person? Or do you appreciate your natural God-given racial identity? Do you like it? Do you like being black? Can you feel good about yourself? Man, yeah, I like being black. And you would think his answer would be, yeah, I love being a black man. I'm glad I'm black. Okay, and then I asked the white woman, are you proud and you like that you're white? Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad I'm white. Okay, then why are both of you going to stop your race, destroy your race? Why are you going to put an end to it? If a black man really is proud to be black, why aren't you with a black woman and procreate your kind? If the white woman's really proud to be white, why doesn't she procreate with somebody who's white to perpetuate her kind? That's a legitimate question and argument that can be posed.
Because we've been indoctrinated through the forced recolonization.
That's right, indoctrination. It's all about brainwashing, indoctrination, propaganda from the who?
Oh, you know why they're doing this?
Oh, I do. Yeah, but go ahead, tell me.
The interracial breeding is to they're actually suppressing traits to create more recessive gene traits, because blonde hair and blue eyes is one of the most recent modern adaptations of humanity, but red hair and green eyes is the very most common most recent adaptation of humanity.
Right. And we might have a little different take on that. It's at least with me hearing you say adaptation. I believe all races were created in their original natural state, the way God wanted them, the Creator wanted them to be, and that the quote unquote great sin, the fall, was this stepping outside the garden and starting to amalgamate with other races. That's not the way God intended it to be. In fact, in Jesus' words in the cauldron, he mentions racial purity. You have rejected your homeland. You have rejected your racial purity. It's an incredible reading. I just put that video on the top of our website at righteousarmy.org because I'd never heard it before. I've heard of, Jesus' words in the Bible, but some of these other books, I was trying to remember the names of them earlier. I just can't remember. There's one in particular that was not included in the Bible, that Enoch, the book of Enoch, right?
I was going to say Enoch. That's the one that's got my attention.
Yeah. Great book with all kinds of perspectives that are much more consistent, right, with reality and nature and the spirituality. It's clear that the books in the Bible were not only put together, by the Council of Laodicea, the Vatican, right, to create what they wanted to create. If they're putting the books together, they're also deciding, whether they're going to use this word or that word when they translate, because some of the words can translate, to two different meanings, and they're going to use the one that suits their agenda. So there's no doubt that there's problems with this, modern King James or any modern version of a translated Bible. The only way for anybody to fully understand the Bible would be if they studied in Greek, right? I mean, and could read the originals and totally understand all the variable possible meanings of the words in the Greek. I mean, but who's going to do that? And, we do have some people that have taken the time to do that. And most of their works are, shadow banned, or suppressed. Because there are a great many books and resources out there where people have given the perfect, more accurate or proper, definition, interpretation of biblical verses that are completely contrary to what's in the modern Bibles. But to know that there are these other books, I'd never heard of the Cauldron. But if you watch it, it's only a 5-minute video. It's on the top of our homepage. This man is reading the words of Jesus, and man, I get goosebumps listening to it, because first of all, when he's reading the words of Jesus, I know him. I know those are his words. They're just perfect. They're the words of Yeshua. There's just no doubt about it. And he references those issues, right? Of men not being men, but being like women, and women being like men. He's talking about the last days, because a Roman person asked him, and what will be the end of the days, and he starts going on to this thing where it's like the guy says, reading it, it's almost like reading a modern newspaper. But, this is heavy stuff, because like you said, all the brainwashing, the propaganda, the conditioning, the commercialization of it all, every commercial, they deliberately, purposefully put a black man with a white woman in every TV commercial just to condition people to think that's normal.
Now they got the extended family where it's the white grandma and the black grandpa.
Exactly. Yeah. And now they're starting to get those Orientals in there too. You know, first it's make sure we get every commercial with a black man and a white woman. You know, now it's a Chinese man and a black woman. You know, or a Chinese man and a white woman. It's and I'll be honest. I mean, the things we're talking about are things that are supposed to be understood, taught to children. I never knew that. I was never taught that. I was never taught racial integrity, moral integrity, when I was a child. So therefore, my mind was subject to this, Khazarian Jew, communist Jew, Zionist Jew, new one world order agenda that comes through the television and the movies and the gaming and the music and everything else. So I was a victim myself. I mean, my first wife was Chinese. And ironically, I paid a heavy price for that because, they despised the relationship of their daughter with this white guy who was 5 years younger. She died. She got lupus and died, and they stole my daughter with profane, nasty, wretched lie allegations because they wanted to take my child away from me. So I suffered immensely, and
They were traditional. Was it because they were traditional Chinese? Is that why?
Absolutely, yeah, they were from China. Her mom and dad didn't even speak
Sorry to hear that.
English. Yeah, no, it was horrible. It was a misery. I mean, but there you go. I paid the price. I mean, there's the ramification. Now, that's not to say that there might not be people out there that it's a Chinese man and a white woman, or a white man and a Chinese woman that may well have, a fine relationship. And that goes back to your earlier point, right? Sure, two different people can love each other of different races. And I don't judge them. I just make the point that, that's not the way God intended it to be. And, God said, of all the trees in the garden you can partake of, but not this. There's a lot of cryptic reference to the racial connotation. Jesus Christ himself referenced racial purity. But again, there are, well, I could go down the road on this one, all day. So I won't say no more because I'll go on a long rant.
I gotta let you go though, because we've been on the phone over an hour, and I was saying 10 minutes, so I gotta get my son to school.
Yeah, all right, brother. Hey, man, great talking to you. Keep in touch and call me anytime. And
I forgot what your name was, so I could plug it in with your number.
Yeah, my real name is Michael van Scoik, which is pronounced Van Schaik over in Holland. It's a Dutch name, but everybody knows me as Mike Singer, which is my pen name. It's my stage name. So if you want to go with that, it's easier, Mike Singer, or just Mike, okay. Michael. And yeah, save me in your phone. And when you get a chance, brother, watch that top video of that reading from the Cauldron on the top of the website. It's just a really wonderful reading, man, that this guy does.
Okay.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you later.
Hopefully you get David straight on the phone with Harold, and they get this bridge mended or whatever it is and move forward.
Absolutely. I'm going to work towards that, brother.
Thanks for calling me. That's awesome.
All right. Thank you, brother. All right. God bless. Have a great day now.
All right. God bless.
Bye.